Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I've made a video about this camera, the Hasselblad X-Pan, almost 2 years ago, and I gave you 5 reasons why you should get one for yourself. And since the honeymoon phase is well over for a while, I thought I'd give you my honest opinion after shooting this camera for more than 2 years. So before we jump right into today's topic, a quick announcement. On August 11th, I will be in Berlin and I was thinking about doing a meetup there. If you're interested, send me a message through my website or on Instagram. And also my new zine, the Cairo zine, is almost ready. I sent it over to the printing company and they will print it in the next 2 weeks. So I'm really excited about that, but more on that in a different video. So a dedicated video all about the new zine. Okay. Let's get back to topic and let's talk about the Hasselblad X-Pan. First, let's recap the 5 points I've made in the video why you should get one. And the first one is build quality. And I still think it's a very well-built camera, but the first iteration, the paint job, sucks. I mean, look at this picture here. That's how my camera looked when I got it. And this is how my camera looks right now. And as you can clearly see, the paint job came off and it's not looking very good. I mean, it's still fine, but yeah, it looks a little bit messy. And the second point was ease of use. And I still think that it's a very easy to use camera. It's almost like if you're used to shooting a Leica M or any rangefinder, you will be able to shoot this camera, no problem. It's very simple. And it also has aperture priority, so that's also pretty nice, so you don't have to care about the metering. There's a built-in meter and usually it works pretty well. And the third point is aspect ratio. And I think that is the strongest point that speaks for the Hasselblad X-Pan, because I mean, there's no other camera that will give you this kind of image. I mean, there is a medium format camera from Fuji, but that's a huge camera, so it's not very good for traveling. The Hasselblad X-Pan is much better for this. I mean, you can also use some adapters and you can use a medium format camera to shoot 35mm film in it, and it will give you roughly the same aspect ratio, but still it's a pretty much, it's a big hassle to use this camera, and I think it's much easier to use this original one, the Hasselblad X-Pan. Like I just mentioned, the aspect ratio is one of the strongest arguments for a Hasselblad X-Pan. But at the same time, it's one of the biggest challenges because it's not always easy to find a subject that is well suited for this wide angle of view. Like I said, if it works, it's amazing, but often enough it doesn't work. And point number 5 is the image quality. The glass on the Hasselblad X-Pan is absolutely amazing. It's very sharp. I had the opportunity to shoot the 90mm as well, besides the 45 that I own. And that one's also pretty sharp. It's a really nice lens. I haven't had the chance yet to shoot the 30mm, but maybe in the future I will be able to, hopefully. I know somebody who has the lens, so maybe I will be able to shoot that one. But I guess it will also be a pretty good lens as well. Now, let's talk about some negative things about this camera, and the number 1 thing is the price. I mean, the hype is real, and when I got the camera, it was already pretty expensive, and you were looking at around 2,000 to 2,500 euros to get one. But now you're looking at a price tag of 3,000 to 4,000 euros, including the lens, which is pretty sick. I think I've seen one that was broken and they were asking for 2,000 euros without the lens, which is just incredible. And I think the main reason is because a lot of film shooters are craving to get this camera. So the demand is high, and that means the price will also go up, and that is pretty bad. Another thing that is not ideal about the Hasselblad X-Pan is there are only 3 lenses for this camera. There's the 45mm, that's the one I own. There's the 90mm, and then there's the wide angle, it's the 30mm. And the 30mm is super expensive. You're looking at 2,000 to 4,000 euros to get one, because it also includes like a filter and an additional viewfinder, because this one is not covering the 30mm focal range. So yeah, that's pretty sick. And I mean, the problem is not so much that there are only 3 lenses. I think the biggest problem is that you can only use these lenses on the Hasselblad X-Pan. And that's a big downside. I mean, you could technically adapt them to a couple of digital cameras, but why would you do that? And there's no point. And I think that is one of the weaknesses of this system, because if you shoot a Leica M, it's also expensive. You got tons and tons of lenses, but you can use those lenses on other cameras. You don't have to use a Leica camera. You can use a Voigtlander camera, a Zeiss camera, or a Konica Hexer, for instance, and also on a lot of digital cameras like the digital M bodies or some other mirrorless cameras. Like I said, that's a big downside of the Hasselblad system. And because there's only 3 lenses available and the fastest one is f4 and the 30mm is only f5.6, there's also a big downside because you basically cannot shoot this camera in low light. You cannot open up the aperture beyond f4, which is pretty bad. And so yeah, it's not a very good camera for low light. And for that, I think a Leica M is a lot better. And another downside of the camera is it's an electronic camera. So you need batteries. Without batteries, you cannot use the camera. If you're out and about shooting and you didn't bring batteries and the battery's dead, so yeah, you're out of luck. You cannot shoot anymore. It happened to me. It will never happen again, but it happened one time. That sucked. And also because there are electronics in here, if the camera breaks, because there are electronics in here, I guess you might be in trouble. Because the question is not if the camera breaks, it will break at one point. You never know when, but it will happen eventually. And then it might be possible to get it repaired, and that's also a big negative about the camera because there's not many around, there's no more spare parts around. So yeah, that's pretty bad. And especially if you consider the price tag, if it breaks, it basically becomes a very expensive brick on your shelf. And another thing that from time to time can be a little annoying is because the camera isn't silent. If you're in an environment, especially if you're shooting on the streets, you want to be more discreet. It's not the best camera, especially if you're on the last frame and you press the shutter, because then the camera will rewind and that's pretty loud. So for stealthy shooting, not ideal. I've mentioned it before, and that's the aspect ratio. For me, sometimes it's a big challenge to find a suitable subject for this camera. For instance, take this photo. And I think you would agree that this looks much better in 3:2. So that's the struggle if you're shooting the Hasselblad X-Pan. And also this lens, because it's a 45mm, for me personally it's too narrow. I prefer a 28 on a Leica M. So for me personally the 30mm would be much better, but the problem is, like I mentioned before, it's very, very expensive, and also you have to use an external finder, and it's a little bit cumbersome to use, and it's because it's so expensive, I would probably never buy this lens. So like I said, the 45mm not ideal for me, and these days, to be truthful, mostly I use this camera when I shoot a YouTube video, and for personal work I rather shoot my Leica M. I have to admit that, but still it's a good camera, but it's a challenge to shoot it. However, I'm thinking about maybe doing some portrait shoots using the Hasselblad X-Pan. If you would be interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments down below. I think it might be interesting to shoot portraits with this. I've used it for portraits, but maybe I should incorporate it a little more in my videos. Yeah, let me know if you're interested. Okay, now the question is, would I recommend buying the Hasselblad X-Pan? That's a hard one. I think if you don't mind the cash, of course, it's a beautiful camera, it's nice. But I think it makes more sense to buy like a M or some other rangefinder, because you save a lot of money, and for the saved money you can go on a trip and shoot some nice images. Nevertheless, it's an amazing camera. I'm glad that I have one, but at the moment I would probably not buy one. That's what I would say. But in the end, it's up to you if you get one or not. So guys, even though this camera might not be worth it at this price point, but you know what's worth it, and it's a lot cheaper. It's my Hasselblad X-Pan Zine with tons of street photography from around the world. And yes, I'm almost running out of zines, so grab one as long as they are available. And other than that, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I see you in the next one. Until then, auf Wiedersehen.